Welcome, welcome. My name is Cindy Lish, and I'm a career coach that helps stay-at-home moms confidently return to the workforce. Today, I want to talk to you about illegal interview questions to make sure that you know what employers can ask you and what they can't ask you, and ways that we somehow fall into a trap without realizing it. Okay, so first off, ladies, I want you to know that it is actually illegal for employers to ask you if you have children. Yep, they cannot ask that. That is an illegal question. Now, let me tell you how you can handle that question and how you might accidentally open up the um, the discussion about having children without realizing it. Okay, so while employers cannot ask you legally if you have children, if you mention your children, all of a sudden it becomes fair game. So I want you to be cognizant and pay attention to the fact that you're not mentioning your children, even in a benign, innocent way. For example, if you notice a photograph on the employer's desk, if you're in an in-person interview and their child is in ballet or soccer or something else that your child does, I don't want you to make a comment and say, oh, my child does that also, right? Because that will open up the discussion for talking about children. True story. One of my clients actually texted me after a virtual interview, and she said that the interviewer was wearing purple. And I almost came out during that interview and said, oh, you're wearing purple. My daughter would love your outfits. But I heard Cindy's voice in my ear, and Cindy's voice was saying, don't talk about your children. Don't talk about your children. So make sure you don't talk about your children and bring it up on an interview. Sometimes people talk about what the schedule is because I have to rush, I have to pick up my children. Once you start mentioning your children, they can ask you questions. So please, let's not talk about our children at the interview. Okay. Now, suppose that the employer does ask you if you have children. If you're going to a big company where they have a large HR, they should know these rules and know that they can't be doing this. But maybe you're interviewing at a smaller place and they're just not as aware and they might ask this. So here are two different ways to answer that question. For example, if it were me and I was asked that question, I know why they're asking the question. I know they're asking the question because they're thinking that anytime there's an emergency at school, anytime my child's sick or something, I'm going to have to, stop working and go get my child. But my kids are grown. My kids are 20 and 24. So if somebody asked me that question, even though I know it's an illegal question, I would come forward and say, yes, my children are grown and driving and independent, and it's not an issue, right? Because I've satisfactorily answered their question. They'll feel good and I've satisfied everything they need and it doesn't matter. On the other hand, if I were the mom of small children, and those things really would be issues to me, then the proper way to answer that kind of question would be to say, um, you know, can you please explain to me why that's relevant to this position? And you can actually push forward and say that it is not a legal question to ask about children. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to point out as I'm talking to you about legal questions and illegal questions is I want you to kind of get the vibe, right? Of what this work environment would be like. If they're pressing you to answer things that are illegal, that's probably a red flag that it's not going to be a comfortable place for you to work. Okay. So just use that and know that you're the one that has the power. You always have the opportunity to say, something, this is not the right job for me, right? This is not the fit. This is not the right environment. And you have the opportunity to always say no, even if offered a position. If it doesn't feel good to you, then walk out, then leave. Okay. Employers are not allowed to ask about your race, your religion, your sexual orientation, your marital status. If you go to a house of worship, these questions are all illegal. So again, I would bring this back always to just kind of gently reminding them of, could you please explain to me why you're asking this question? This is not relevant to the job, right? So it's always what is going on that's relevant to the job that you're doing. Okay. Um, and so bear this in mind. Other ways that employers can, in a sneaky way, ask you questions. For example, they're not allowed to ask you questions of what is your country of origin. Now, for many people who are watching this video right now, and many of my clients, you are from countries outside, originally from outside of the United States. And actually, it's usually pretty evident because your schooling is from another country. Sometimes your work experience is from another country. But suppose the employer said this to you. Well, that's a lovely accent that you have. Where are you from? That's another way of asking that same question, right? So just be aware. Be aware of what's legal and what's not legal. And then if it feels okay, if it feels conversational, if it seems like a very friendly interaction, which is what an interview should be, it should be a conversation rather than an interrogation. And you feel comfortable with it, by all means, right? You're proud of who you are, you're proud of where you're from. So tell them, I'm from this country. Funny story about the I'm from this country. So one of my clients, she was on an interview. She has a heavy accent. She's clearly from another country. Her resume even speaks about that other country because her initial work experience is from that other country. She was interviewing with one woman, and then she was being moved on to the next level of interviews. She's interviewing in English. Before she moves on to the next level of interviews, the person she was interviewing with switches over, talks to my client in her native tongue. They were both from the same country, in her native tongue, and gave her strict advice on how to handle the next person that she was going to interview with. Okay. I think that's a pretty cool coincidence. Anyway, so I just want you to be aware so that you know your rights. Okay, so that you know what they can ask, they can't ask. So they can't ask about your race, your religion, your marital status, your children. So just be safe. That's all. I hope this was helpful for you. I have lots more content for you on my website. I have a free masterclass, opportunity to talk one-on-one with me to see how I can help you out in your job search. I have blogs, more videos, lots of things available for you. Private Facebook group. Have a super productive week. Always remember you're a warrior, and I'll catch you the next time. Bye-bye.